let's now get to Gio Lopez, and let's talk about the guy that is going to be the starter more than likely this year for Carolina. I mean, you go back and look at the year that he had this past year at South Alabama, completed 66% of his passes for 2,559 yards, 18 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. Also ran for 463 yards and 7 touchdowns on just 83 carries. This is a guy that is a modern version of a modern quarterback. This is exactly what Carolina has had in years past. He's a guy that has a high completion percentage. He's a guy that doesn't turn the football over a lot. The thing that's different is I just don't know how high his ceiling is in terms of being able to put together the types of seasons that we saw from Sam Howell and the types of seasons that we saw from Drake May. I don't think he's in that same elk as those two guys were. But we're talking about two of the greatest quarterbacks that have come through not only Carolina, but two of the better ones that have come through the ACC. So maybe those types of expectations are a little bit high for him. Like you, I've grown on him as the offseason has gone along. I've watched more film on him. I've seen a guy that was really, overmatched at South Alabama. There wasn't really a ton of talent around him, and you could see that by the fact that a lot of those guys did not end up transferring elsewhere. I think this is a guy that in this system has a chance to make a leap, but I just don't know how big that leap is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of thinking out loud from a production standpoint. Can he be a guy that totals a combined 3,500 yards through the air, through the ground, and get us to 26, 28, maybe top out at 30 combined touchdowns? And when you think about that, when you play 12 games in the regular season, that'd be accounting for about just a little over 2 touchdowns per game, which I do think is feasible. And I do think, we know what Belichick's motto was in the NFL. When his teams were great, they were defensive-minded teams. We know now, dude, in college football, I mean, unless it's just a unique set of circumstances like those Georgia teams from a few years ago, maybe what Michigan had, you're going to play in a lot of 31-28s, 38-35 type of football games. And I do think Gio Lopez is a guy that's capable of keeping up with the oppositions that Carolina is going to see. Part of it, too, helps the fact that, you do have, TCU and Clemson, but there aren't a lot of dynamic, explosive offenses where they maybe have to be in track meet Saturday after Saturday. But if he could just really increase that production that he had at South Alabama, where he combined for about 3,000 yards, take it up to maybe 35. You love that 18-5 touchdown interception ratio. We get that to, let's say, like 23-7. And then what he does on the ground with that mobility, because I think he has, he's not going to run away from you, but he's a little bit more nifty than you think when he does pull the football down and run. Then I do think he could be a guy that, lives up to that $2.1 million investment that it was reported Carolina made in him when he entered the transfer portal. So I'm really, really intrigued to see kind of what he has to offer. Because you're right. Is he Sam Howell? No. Is he Drake May? No. Those are, for all intents and purposes from a talent perspective, the two most gifted quarterbacks this program has ever seen. Can he be Marquise Williams light, though, from that 2015 year, where he can make plays with his arms, make plays with his legs, and be a fun, exciting player to watch from week in to week out? I think he can be. And so I'm really interested to see how Freddie Kitchens and this offensive staff build the offense around him, because he doesn't have an All-American running back to hand the football off to, like in Amari Hampton, like some other guys have had in recent years. But nonetheless, I do think he's going to put up numbers and be a fun guy to watch and be one that Tar Heel fans are proud he's their quarterback as we watch him develop this upcoming year.
Yeah, I would caution you to say that he doesn't have an All-American running back. I don't know if he's going to be All-American, but I do think that you are going to have a really solid backfield led by Davian Goss. So the thing is, he's going to have more around him than he did at South Alabama. There's going to be more help for him to be able to win at this level, believe it or not, than he had at his last school. And there's a reason why that team went 6-6. Now, I mean, look, there's going to be times where there's going to be, especially early in the season, where there could be some learning circumstances for him, where we look back and we say, yeah, that wasn't a great game from Gio Lopez. But, hey, you got to remember that he's coming up from a group of 5 school. That's my thing, is that it's not an automatic. But I like the fact that he protects the football. I like the fact that he's got some mobility to him. I like the fact that he's got the strong arm. Those are things that you just really can't teach. You have to have these elements. We've talked about it with the guys that Carolina is recruiting. You need traits guys that simply can do what you need them to do at certain positions. That's what you've got in Gio Lopez. I don't know if he's going to blow anybody away. I think he's a guy, I've seen a lot of the quarterback rankings for the ACC. They have him sort of middle of the pack. I think that's probably what you're looking at for Carolina. But that's better than what you had last year. Because Jacoby Criswell, yes, there were times where he was really good. There were times like the game against Boston College where he was just abysmal. I don't know if you have those highs and lows from a guy like Gio Lopez. I think you might have more steady production. And the thing is that, is it going to be the greatest production in the world? Are we looking at a guy that's going to challenge for the Heisman Trophy? No, I don't think you're going to have that. But do I think you're going to have a guy that's right in the middle of the conference, that gets better as the season goes along, and that really progresses along with the team? I think that's probably what you're going to have in Gio Lopez. And I think most Carolina fans can probably live with that. What I would compare him to, I mean, look, honestly, I do think that there are a lot of elements of his game that are similar to what Sam Howell did in terms of his build, the way that he runs. He's a guy that is very fearless in terms of his running style. He will bowl through guys if he has to. That's one of the things that concerns you a little bit about his durability you did that at the group of 5 level and you were perfectly fine. Now you got to do it at the power conference level. And if you're taking those hits week after week, and we saw it with Sam, dude, yeah, it definitely, he's a warrior. There's no doubt about that. It took a toll as the season started to go along. You got to the point at the end of the year, like when he took the hits that he took in that game against Miami, you were honestly saying to yourself, how is this kid still walking? But I mean, that's the thing. I think you're going to get a similar style to that with Gio Lopez. I think they're going to be able to use him in the run game. And yeah, I'm interested to see, because I know Belichick's going to want to do some stuff from the pro style, from the pro angle. There's going to be some under center stuff. That's something that he's got to become comfortable with, because any of the snaps that I've seen of him, he's been a guy that's strictly out of the shotgun. But I do think that this is a guy that, as he adjusts to what Bill Belichick wants, they're going to adjust to him too. And I think they will form this offense around him. My question is can they form this offense around him quick enough here with this offseason, being as short as it is? I mean, with him having come in the summer, can they build that playbook that quickly? And is it something that is able to translate? Now, the thing is, I mentioned there about the durability. One thing that I think Carolina really needs, no matter who it is, whether it's Gio Lopez, somehow somebody else comes in and impresses that much, in terms of turnover at the quarterback position, we saw last year 3 different guys come in and start for Carolina. Do we think that Gio Lopez, being the guy that we think is going to start the season, do we think that he starts the entire year and brings a little bit of balance to Carolina, something that I think they desperately need at the quarterback position, along with the really steady play that we're hoping we're going to get from a Gio Lopez?
Yeah, I would say so. I would think that barring something unforeseen, I think he plays. I think he starts all 12 games for Carolina. And if you have stability at the quarterback spot with where the schedule lines up, I mean, Carolina's going to have the better quarterback in a lot of games this year as compared to last year, where because there was a rotation of guys at different points in the year, they were going into the game with a disadvantage. So I think so, but I think it kind of comes back to what we said earlier, where if they had to go to the backup for whatever reason, I think this room is in a better position to withstand that this year as opposed to last year. Um, I also think the fact that you have, 2 bye weeks this year makes it easier for him to kind of recover from the nicks and bruises that he will get throughout the year. I don't think that's something that can be understated. So I think the expectation is someone that'll take the field every Saturday, play the majority of the snaps every Saturday, and if that's the case, I think for the most part you got to feel good about Carolina's chances of being competitive, because I think he's going to be a guy that, with having more offensive weapons around him, will bring out the best version of himself, as opposed to the guy you saw going 6-6 with the Jaguars at South Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, and I think for him, it's the biggest thing is going to be staying healthy, staying on the field. I think that if he does that, then he is going to be able to put together more production than he did at South Alabama. He is going to be able to lead Carolina to more wins than he led South Alabama to, because, as I mentioned, I think the talent around him is better. Do I think the talent around him is great? Do I think this is the best set of weapons that Carolina has ever amassed? No, not by any means. But I do think that the talent around him is much better than it was at South Alabama. I trust that he is going to be able to fit in with what this offense wants to do. And I mean, that's the thing is, do we think that he is going to be able to move this offense efficiently? Because last year, that was the biggest problem. There were stops and starts from the offense. Yes, the defense is ultimately the biggest issue that Carolina had last year. It's the biggest issue that they had under Mac Brown and Larry Fedora. There's no question about that. But I do think that, part of it was that when Carolina needed to move the football, they needed to put points on the board. They weren't necessarily able to do that. My thing about Gio Lopez is, do I think he can get to a point where he is a guy that can eventually take over a game? I do. I think he will get to that point. Will it be right out of the gate to start the season? No. They're putting it on his back and saying, look, man, this is one of those games against TCU. You're going to have to go out there and score us 35 points or else we're not going to win this game. If that's the mindset that they have going into it, or if that's, what ends up happening in that game, how it plays out, then I don't know where Carolina ends up. I don't know how that ends up shaping out for Carolina. Probably not that good. But as the season goes along, I feel like this offense will really start to get in a rhythm. Gio Lopez will really start to find his rhythm and will have adjusted to what teams are going to throw at him at this level. And Carolina will be able to move that ball efficiently. And that's the most important thing for this offense this year. You don't have to be the offenses that you've been in years past. We're hoping that you're going to run a little bit of a slower pace. That's going to allow you to have a much better defense that's going to be able to help you out. And maybe that means you don't have to score nearly as many points. But I think you're just looking for a quarterback that can efficiently move this team up and down the field. Because, hey, man, we said it. We love the offense. We wish that we were more of a defensive team, and that even if it means that the offense takes a little bit of a step back. I'm going to tell you right now, last year, the offense taking a little bit of a step back was not fun. And that was certainly something that I would not wish to see again this year.
Yeah, I think Carolina will be much more consistent on offense, because I think there'll be better game plans put together from Freddie Kitchens. Look, I know there's a lot of questions about Freddie Kitchens as a play caller. He had some, uneven results as a play caller in the National Football League. We saw what the team looked like when he, coached a bowl game as the interim last year, in between the firing of Mac Brown and the hiring of Bill Belichick. But I think what Belichick will bring off the field is, I think these meetings are going to be much better. And I think these game plans are going to be much better. And I think Carolina will go in with a much more concrete plan and an identity of who they want to be. The biggest maybe criticism that you could have of both Phil Longo and Chip Lindsey was that Carolina's offense, while it could be explosive, what really relied on big plays. And if they could not hit home run plays, they really struggled to just move the football up and down the field. Now, part of that was they were always chasing points. Those coordinators felt like they had to kind of call home run plays because they knew most Saturdays if we don't put up a 40 burger, the chance of us winning are few and far between. You hope that's not going to be the case this year. But I think Carolina will also be conditioned that way because the mindset that existed on offense was from the fact that Carolina knew their defense couldn't be trusted. And so there was a reason why those games were coordinated the way that they were, and is why those offenses were always seeking those plays. I think Carolina's going to be, you hope, a lot more balanced this year. And I think with the defensive additions they brought over in the portal, with some of the guys that got on the coaching staff, I think it's fair to say you would be disappointed if they don't take a step forward defensively. Can Gio Lopez be a guy that quarterbacks an offense that scores 28 to 32 points per game week in, week out? That answer, I think, is yes. And as long as Carolina's in that range on a consistent basis, they're, one, going to win a lot of games, but B, they'll be in just about every single game you would imagine. So I think it's fair to expect him to be a quarterback that, does have big play potential and will take games over when it requires, but can also manage games better because hopefully Carolina's in a position where they can manage outcomes as opposed to always having to chase them.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I think the slower offense is certainly something that we're going to see this year. More methodical is really what you're looking for from this offense at times, because you're right. It really was an offense that was based on big plays, especially even last year. If Carolina was going to hit big plays down the field late in the season, you saw it a few times. That was the only way you were going to get Chris Culver involved in the game. Can we get a guy like him, a guy like Jordan Shipp? Can we get some of those guys involved in some short, intermediate stuff that allows Carolina to move the ball down the field, put together some of these longer drives that gives your defense a little bit of a break? Don't get it wrong. You're still going to need those explosive plays. And you've got a quarterback that can make those explosive plays. He did last year. He hit plays. If you really need to see it, just go back and watch the game that they had. I forget who they played that they scored 87 on this past year. That's all you got to do. Go back to that game for South Alabama. He'll show you that he has the big play potential. But you're looking for a guy that can sort of move this team down the field, take some time off the clock at times, and help Carolina's defense out.